Caitlin Clark wasn't just playing basketball last season. She was surviving a gauntlet of deliberate hits, cheap shots, and a level of aggression that had many fans asking one simple question: why are they going after her so hard? The answer was complicated.
Goes around to Gumake, drives baseline, and shot rejected by Izzy McMagor!
Some saw it as a desperate tactic to slow down a rising star. Others claimed it was just tough defense. But one thing was undeniable. Clark spent too much time picking herself up off the hardwood. And now, the Indiana Fever have decided enough is enough. They've just assembled a trio of enforcers who won't tolerate the old-school bullying that nearly overshadowed Clark's incredible performances. Get ready, because the days of ganging up on Caitlin Clark are officially done.
Clark! Hammer!
Caitlin Clark entered the spotlight with jaw-dropping scoring sprees and passes most guards wouldn't even attempt. She lit up the league like a comet, but that brilliance came with a dark side. She was marked. Game after game, Clark found herself on the receiving end of fouls that felt more personal than strategic. It was more than just a standard rookie hazing. From sudden body checks to suspiciously late hits, there was no shortage of tactics aimed at rattling her confidence. Fans started noticing a trend. An unusually high percentage of flagrant fouls involved Clark as the victim. Then the chatter ramped up. Was it jealousy of her rising fame? Was it frustration over her highlight reels dominating the media? Or was it an outdated approach? If you can't stop her skill, try to break her spirit. Each time she hit the floor, the crowd held its breath. And each time, Clark dusted herself off and carried on as if the hits were barely a scratch. Her perseverance turned heads even more. That indomitable spirit didn't just keep her in the game, it pushed her to excel. Yet the question kept echoing. Where was the protection for one of the league's most electrifying talents? The Indiana Fever took note. They saw the bruises, the slow-motion replays of borderline hits, and the uneasy chatter about Clark's future.
Off to Carter, her jumper is good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off.
They knew they couldn't afford to see their star forced to fight battles she shouldn't be fighting alone. Fans wondered if Clark would eventually snap or show frustration. But she never did. She stayed focused, kept her chin up, and kept winning over the crowd with her undeniable grit. That same grit, ironically, drove her new team to say, "Never again." There's a fine line between intense competition and crossing the line into recklessness. The Fever organization watched Clark endure the latter all last season. People close to the team whispered about how the constant physical punishment was affecting her behind the scenes. Even the toughest competitors can only handle so many cheap shots before it starts weighing on them, physically and mentally. Front office executives and coaching staff realized it wasn't just about defending Clark's body. It was about preserving her future. She's a once-in-a-generation talent, a player who can bring an entire new audience to women's basketball. If she gets hurt or burned out by constant hard fouls, everyone loses: the team, the fans, and the league. So the Fever decided to act. They didn't just draft new rookies or sign average role players. They scoured the league for veterans who not only excel in skill but also possess the grit and swagger to protect their emerging superstar. This move wasn't purely altruistic, it was also strategic. In a league where physical play often decides big games, having enforcers who can counter that aggression is crucial. Think of it like building a fortress. Clark is the shining tower at the center, but you need strong walls around that tower to keep it safe. If last season showed the Fever that a fortress was necessary, this offseason showed they were willing to spare no expense in constructing it. Enter Natasha Howard, a three-time WNBA champion, former Defensive Player of the Year, and an absolute menace in the paint. If you're a player thinking about body-checking Caitlin Clark on a fast break, you might pause when you see Howard lurking nearby. She's the embodiment of "not in my house," turning away shots, shutting down passing lanes, and delivering bone-rattling blocks that send a chill through opposing offenses. But Howard's impact goes beyond numbers on a stat sheet. She brings a championship pedigree, hard-won through postseason battles where every possession can be the difference between glory and heartbreak. That experience is priceless for a young team. She knows how to stay composed under the weight of massive expectations. When the league's most aggressive defenders come at Clark, Howard has both the authority and the skill to step in and say, "Try that nonsense again and see what happens." You can't overlook her offensive contributions either. She averages double-digit points with ease, and her ability to stretch the floor forces opponents to pick their poison. Guard Clark's dynamic shooting, or leave enough space for Howard to cut inside and punish them. It's a deadly combination. The Fever didn't just find a post player. They found a silent sentinel who offers both intimidation and a winning attitude that can help mold Clark into a champion for years to come. If Natasha Howard is the silent sentinel, Sophie Cunningham is the fearless spark. She's the one who might break up a scuffle, then wink at the opposing bench as if to say, "That's all you got?" Cunningham has never been shy about letting her competitive side shine. She's unafraid to mix it up under the rim or confront players towering above her. Some call her antics polarizing. She calls them passion. Cunningham's reputation for physical play isn't just about brute strength. It's about psychological warfare. Opponents know she'll step up for her teammates in an instant, whether it's by draining a pressure-packed three-pointer or delivering a perfectly legal but ferociously hard box out to send a message. She's the type who thrives on chaos, turning heated moments into a fuel source for her game. And let's not forget her lethal accuracy from beyond the arc. Pair that with Caitlin Clark's court vision, and you have a duo that could unleash a barrage of offense while keeping foes in check defensively. The Fever's coaching staff practically salivates at the idea of Clark driving the lane, drawing defenders and kicking it out to Cunningham on the wing. With Cunningham's range, the strategy is simple yet terrifying. Double Clark at your own risk, because Sophie Cunningham won't hesitate to make you pay. Off the court, her presence in the locker room can't be overstated. She's vocal, she's spirited, and she isn't afraid to call out complacency. In many ways, she's that big sister who tells it like it is, whether you want to hear it or not. Sometimes that's exactly what a young star like Clark needs. A teammate who refuses to back down and demands the same fire from everyone around her. Where Howard offers silent grit and Cunningham brings fearless energy, DeWanna Bonner is the composed mentor who's been there, done that, and won the trophy. Bonner's resume sparkles with multiple All-Star appearances and WNBA titles. She's a seasoned pro who can adapt to just about any situation on the court, whether it's a high-speed run-and-gun matchup or a methodical playoff slugfest. For Caitlin Clark, Bonner's arrival is like gaining a masterclass instructor in winning mentality. Bonner understands the pressures of carrying a franchise on your shoulders, and she also knows how to elevate everyone around her. She studies her teammates' strengths and figures out how to maximize them, whether that means setting timely screens or guiding Clark to exploit a particular defensive weakness. But don't mistake Bonner's leadership for gentleness. She's tough as nails, and she's known to pile on points when her team needs a spark. She's also known to put an opponent on notice if they start targeting her teammates with cheap fouls. On-court scuffles rarely escalate when Bonner is around, because she's quick to defuse them, or end them, before they become a larger problem. With Bonner, Cunningham, and Howard joining forces, the Fever aren't just forming a protective shield around Clark. They're assembling a triple threat of championship experience, fiery energy, and unstoppable defense. The league's bullies have every reason to think twice. The Fever have effectively said, try to harass Clark now, and you'll face not one but three enforcers ready to push back. The WNBA has long been dominated by a handful of teams with deep rosters and generational talents. But with the Fever's aggressive offseason moves, a seismic shift could be on the horizon. Powerhouses like the Las Vegas Aces or Seattle Storm might scoff at first, but they'll have to acknowledge that this Indiana squad is different, tougher, smarter, and built around one of the most watchable players in the game. Imagine a prime-time matchup next season, Caitlin Clark versus the league's defensive stalwarts, with Howard and Cunningham on either side, and Bonner anchoring the transition game. No more easy lanes for defenders to line up cheap hits on Clark. No more intimidation factor leaning toward the old guard. Instead, fans get to see basketball at its finest. A superstar free to display her skills, surrounded by teammates who excel in turning up the heat. Some insiders suspect that other franchises are already scrambling to counter the Fever's bold strategy. Rival general managers might be on the lookout for their own enforcers, especially if they foresee a potential playoff clash with an Indiana team that suddenly looks like it has all the pieces to make a deep run. Even casual fans are buzzing about the renewed excitement around women's hoops, fueled by the idea that the balance of power is far from settled. The question on everyone's mind is whether this transformation can happen overnight. Going from a bruised and battered team to a juggernaut doesn't typically happen quickly. Yet the Fever are betting on a magical blend of raw talent, veteran savvy, and a collective hunger for redemption. And if the early signs are any indication, they just might pull it off. Whenever a star player suddenly finds herself guarded by formidable new allies, the rumor mill starts churning. Whispers around the league claim certain teams feel blindsided by the Fever's audacity, snatching up veterans like Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner, while also netting the ever-feisty Sophie Cunningham. Critics question if the salary cap can truly accommodate all this talent, fueling speculation about behind-the-scenes negotiations and personal sacrifices made for the greater goal of protecting Clark. Then there's the potential for rivalry rematches. We've heard about heated moments between Clark and specific players, like that infamous collision or that flagrant foul that had everyone holding their breath. Those same foes are rumored to be training harder than ever to prove they can outmuscle Indiana's brand new fortress. There's even talk of old grudges carrying over into the next season, setting the stage for dramatic confrontations that could escalate tensions. But controversy isn't limited to physical hits. Some fans speculate that the league itself might step in, worried about fights overshadowing the game's growing popularity. Others think it could boost ratings. After all, who doesn't love a good rivalry? The truth sits somewhere between hype and concern. One thing is sure, with the Fever's new enforcers in place, no one will risk taking a cheap shot on Clark without expecting immediate consequences.
3 Sky players coming over.
Will we see more discipline from those who used to take liberties with Clark? Will the referees crack down? Or will they let these rugged battles play out? These questions hang in the air, adding yet another layer of intrigue. Every game featuring the Fever could become must-see TV. Fans want to see if Clark's unstoppable offense, now backed by a steel wall of support, will surge to new heights, or if new controversies will erupt before the final buzzer. The Indiana Fever have flipped the script on everything we thought we knew about their franchise. Caitlin Clark isn't standing alone anymore, quietly enduring over-the-top roughness. Now she has an entourage of proven warriors: Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and DeWanna Bonner, ready to guard her back and fuel her future. It's a dramatic turnaround that could spark a new era, not just for the Fever, but for the entire league. When a budding superstar finally gains the support she needs, the possibilities become endless. Every time Clark takes the court, fans will be on the edge of their seats, anticipating not just the points she'll drop, but also the fiery responses from her teammates if anyone tries to push her around. The feverish crowd will roar as defenses scramble to handle a multi-pronged attack that combines finesse with ferocity. So what does this transformation mean for the WNBA at large? It means old power structures are no longer a sure thing. It means a rookie can rise with unstoppable force if backed by the right people. It means that the storylines around each game are now more unpredictable and far more exciting than ever before. So keep your eyes on the Indiana Fever, because they're not just here to play ball. They're here to shift the narrative, rewrite old rules, and claim their place among the league's best. And if you think any old bullies can stop them, you might want to watch again. The days of targeting Caitlin Clark without consequences? Those days are gone.